you if you actually want to know what happened in the story you take part in, because that's sort of a thing. Oh God. Okay, so let me see here. I suppose we should start from the very beginning. This campaign sort of started out with
In a galaxy far, far away.
yeah. Um, I think I want to explain the setup for it first, just because
Okay.
it's kind of a interesting story how that happened. As you guys well know, I've been playing D&D for years, and a couple of people I knew that, but they had never played D&D before, so they were kind of like, "Oh, we should totally play D&D online." I'm like, I don't know. That sounds not like it's gonna be a thing I enjoy really doing because it might be a mess. And I had always played it face to face. I was sort of one of those people that was like, if you don't do it face to face, it's not the same. And I still sort of feel that way, but I do agree it's still entertaining to do over the internet. Um, However, one of the people I sort of like listen to podcasts from, which I don't do very often, started using the Roll20 service. I
Mhm.
sort of looked into it a little bit. I'm like, oh hey, this is actually kind of easy to use, and I was just like, you know what, we'll give this a go. I basically wrote up a little campaign. I was like, okay guys, I'm gonna need at least. I told them I'm gonna need at least two more players. Um, and I don't. How did you find out about this? I forgot. How did Rogue? How did you find out about the campaign I was going to be running, Rogue? I don't remember.
I was raving on how I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons because my previous campaign, where I was so desperate to play Dungeons and Dragons that I DM'd, and it was horrible. It was Dragos, Luck, and Callie. I was like, no, I need to be a player. I hate this. And
A
so
Swede, a Brazilian, and I don't remember where Luck is from.
he,
It sounds like the start to a bad joke.
It
I
is.
know it
It
does,
is the
right?
start to a it is a very, very bad joke. Anyways, and nothing against the people. It was terrible for the players and for the DM. No one enjoyed it. Um, and so I think I was raving about it. I was like, I just want to be a player in a campaign. And I think 40 is the only person that I knew from that group who could have even mentioned it.
40 probably. I was because I was asking 40 to find players. I remember that.
Yeah,
I
there you
think
go.
that's how you got picked up into this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well,
And so then you talked to me and you're like, do you like homebrew? I was like, I fucking love homebrew.
okay. I think I was like slightly happy to find out there was somebody that knew even an iota of what playing D&D was like. Because for me, I
Yeah.
don't really care how
You were
much.
very skeptical of even bringing me into the game though. I remember that.
Because I wanted to do this with people I sort of knew, and the other reason I was kind of skeptical of bringing you in is I was pretty sure you were not going to gel with the rest of the people very well at all. That ended up coming to fruition, so I wasn't wrong there.
Yeah. I mean, Logan was fine to play with. The other people left.
Logan was okay. Your interactions with Jeremy were kind of. Yeah.
I wasn't the instigator. Let's just be
Yeah.
clear here.
I mean, their problem was they were too obsessed with wanting to play a game that was pretty much exactly the same. Like, especially Matt was excessively.
Exactly the same as Critical Role, yeah.
I am not whoever the guy who runs Critical Role.
Matt Mercer.
Matt Mercer, yeah, I'm not Matt Mercer. I don't know Vin Diesel. Uh, Sorry, I'm not cool enough to know Vin Diesel. Uh, so
So yeah, they had expectations for him to be the type of DM that he was not.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's not that they disliked the campaign. It's just they didn't really understand what D&D is as a concept entirely. Like they thought it had to very strictly adhere to this specific world that was set up, um, and that you could sort of just do things without having a plan of what you did. And Matt especially ended up having that problem where he had a character where he had no idea how he actually wanted to play the character. He just sort of pulled it out of his ass, and then never, like, he's like, oh, I have sort of a backstory.
So Matt was a Draken, basically, is what we
He
decided
started
on,
out as a winged-tailed dragonborn.
which don't exist.
They can technically exist. It's just usually at that point they're full draken because they're supposed to either have wings or a tail. They're not supposed to have both.
If they have them, yeah.
If they have both, they're pretty much draken anyway. So we just went with draken later on, which didn't really change anything. But how this whole thing started was, first of all, I have to say, when I was making this campaign, I was like, oh god, this is going to be a train wreck, because
It's going to be super short. It's not going to go anywhere.
I did not even think the group we had was going to make it past level 1. To be fair, we lost 2 players almost right out of the chute.
Yep.
The first player left simply because he was mature enough to recognize this wasn't for him, and he said, you know what, I'm out. And that was fine, especially since he was the biggest scheduling conflict we had. The second player was 40, aka a guy I know as Travis.
He was like, I didn't know
because he's
this
an extreme
game involved
man-child
dice.
and doesn't realize that Dungeons and Dragons is a dice-based tabletop role-playing game. He just
was
understood
like,
the
I didn't sign
role-playing
up
part.
for this. I didn't think it had anything to do with dice. I'm not cool with this. I'm out.
Yeah, no. He played a monk, and he's like, I was trying to help him learn to play his character, and in combat, like, I was trying to teach him how to use flurry of blows, and he so hard in like 10 seconds, it wasn't funny. So he wasn't a good player. Probably because I don't think he was prepared for this. And then we brought Crunky in for a little bit, but I think this was a little bit too a little out there for him. So anyway, now let's go ahead and start from where the story really began. So I'm not gonna really waste a lot of time with the other group, the more animalistic group necessarily, because like I said, 2 of the 3 of them ended up leaving very early on. But I will let you know when they left. So how the story sort of started out was the setting was a town known as Iswald. It was sort of this town that was shrouded in mystery and mist, just in general, as a thick cloud of mist hung over the valley that they were in. They all arrived in this valley sort of under strange means.
Like a wood elf who's not supposed to get lost in a forest gets lost in a forest and ends up stumbling into this
the
mist-filled valley.
Dragonborn, or the Draken, showed up because he was flying asleep while drunk, because his character's thing was he drank a lot. And the other ones I just were like, he randomly showed up here. Like, the tiefling thief that got rode out, like, the next session, showed up because he, like, stowed away on a wagon and fell asleep on it, and he woke up in a ditch.
As you do.
Very much Goku falling off the minivan into hell while on Snake Way.
So everyone arrives at like very mystical means. It's not normal at all. Mira was with a person who had hired her. It was this high elf who didn't understand the way the world worked, really. He didn't understand how currency worked. And very naive, but he basically spent like 200 to 300 years like in a library studying magic. And his goal was to go out into the world and find magic. And like learn about it. So his companion, who he hired to be his guide, because he was very worldly,
was a half elf who was
half elf. Sorry,
wood elf on the. I know, but
so this half elf, very worldly. He knew how to get around and knew who was like you should associate with, who you shouldn't associate with, and he was going to get paid. So
he was a ranger.
Yeah, so he was a ranger.
Oh, that's Valerian, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
I know something.
And then the other one was Eldon, which is what the school's named after.
The wizard, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Eldon was in constant pursuit of knowledge and did not know how a lick of how the world worked at that time. And Valerian was his like guide. They end up at this bar, find Mira, and eventually coax her via money. Because Mira's like, I don't want to associate you. You're making a scene. Go away. He's like, I'll pay you 50 gold a day to come with us.
No. You were like, he was like, how much would I have to pay you? And you tried to drop an exorbitant price on him. Ironically, like the player, not really, both the player and the character didn't really understand, because I was like, I had set up for him initially that he made a certain amount of gold every day, or every week, or something like that.
Yeah.
And
He didn't understand how currency worked.
No, the great thing here is Rogue did not know this about the character, so she put this exorbitant price out there that seemed exorbitant, but it turned out he could barely afford to pay her.
She's like, fine, if you want me that bad, pay me 50 gold a day and I'll go with you. He's like, okay, deal. And Mira's like, really? Can I get that in writing? And she legit went through and wrote out a physical contract, made him sign it, and she followed them around. She didn't know how iota of how to teach someone magic, which is what she was being hired to do.
He made, I think it was 500 gold a week at the time, which means 7 of the. So it was like what, like 350 of it every week went to Mira, and the other 150 was just like, let's just say, yeah. Let's just put it this way: their budget went from massive to nothing. But it didn't really matter, because immediately they ended up going to a place that was completely isolated from the world, where money didn't really get you anything.
She didn't stop Mira. She got her paycheck every week. For a while there, she made sure, because that's just how she was. And Mira at the time was this cloaked figure who was very standoffish, didn't really associate with many people at all, and is very distrusting. Like flighty, very distressed. Not flighty as in like the literal sense, like flying away.
She acted like somebody with something to hide, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and never showed her rings ever. They just weren't a thing that existed to other people. She tried to even like the majority of the time to hide that she was even an elf. You know, like unless like she trusted them, kind of, she would be like, okay, I'll take my hood off for now. So yeah, that's how she was with this group. They stumble into Iswald.
Yeah, and essentially when they first arrive at this town, it's just sort of like the town appears pretty much deserted. For both party groups, it appears pretty much deserted. They're both on the edge of town, attacked by these strange mistwalkers, which goes a little better for some. Not so well for others. The more animalistic group just sort of was jumped from behind. They turn around to face them, and the now ready and prepared Salvin, who was sort of the NPC guide at the time, who was supposed to help get the ball rolling and help set up for things and really lay down ground rules of where and where not the players could and could not go during certain times of day. Showed up to sort of like just fend them off and rescue them, pulled them back to the town, where Mira's group was more caught off guard, afraid. Mira goes to fight them with fire, but at the time her magic is incredibly unstable. Instead of throwing a little fire bolt that's twin fireballs, except one fires out from behind her, flying towards the town, and they're just like, well, shit.
Yeah, I almost destroyed a town. Like,
destroyed at least a house or something with a fireball. And this is sort of where the first thing happens, where it's sort of to set things off of players not really trusting this character, is he just sort of steps out from behind a building, catches the fireball, clenches his fist, and then there's no more fireball.
So initially, like, that's the first thing that they say is just like, oh.
And then he immediately goes up to them and orders them to follow him. and any questions are asked, he sort of just immediately shuts them down.
Mhm.
Like, at this point, this character is very strict, monotone, does not take any shit. So Mira's group arrives. I think I had them arrive a day before than the other group did. When the other group arrives, the immediate first thing the Dragonborn does is he goes up to the desk, or not the clerk, or a bartender up to the bar. The bartender sort of the bartender sort of like throws a spiel.
It was a
Because
very
he's-
nice spiel. I'm gonna say this out front. That spiel was good.
It was a really good
made
spiel.
Me
Because
wanna
it
drink.
was the bartender was feeling a little bit nostalgic because he was having new people come in. He couldn't resist throwing his spiel about all the ale they had, but in fact they didn't have a single drop of booze in the place, and the huge alcoholic Dragonborn was not okay with this. Was about to go into a berserker rage when he appears to the other characters, gets bonked on the head by this red-haired person, which they don't really know, and he's got these freaky-looking eyes and is kind of terrifying. Mira's not okay with it.
Yeah, Mira being the dragon worshipping elf was like, what the fuck? And this like sets them onto like opposite ends, like, you know, that anime bit where like sparks go between eyes, like when they're furiously angry with another person. That was the kind of scenario. Even though like he was terrifying, she like stood her ground and was like, no, you're not touching him, how dare you do this, etc., etc., and like tried to get him to a bed. And Mira with her 8 strength is like trying to hoist this 600, right?
He was either 600 or 900 pounds, because he was
600. No,
he was
I could
like 8
levitate
feet.
him, I remember.
You didn't have levitate at the time.
I know. Eventually, I'm saying I remember that when I did get it, I could levitate him, so he was under 800.
Yeah.
So no, the 600 fucking pound Draken thing. She's trying to hoist him upstairs. She's like, "Can someone help me?" And the only people I have is like a ranger and a wizard.
The ranger was, I think, the only other
Dex.
person that had... Yeah, they were all Dex characters. Like, every one of them was either a Dex character or a intelligence character.
Even Mira was high dex, yeah.
Yeah, like, we had... The only strength character in the group was the one who
Was
just got knocked
Mira.
out with a sleep spell.
And didn't he help eventually? He's like, just stop and like.
Yeah, no. At some point, the NPC, who at the time had, I think, either 21 or 24 strength, total, was just like, please, just stop. As he basically one arm lifts this guy up over his shoulder.
Yeah. So for like the next couple of days, things like Mira's like sitting outside this Draken's room every night guarding him, very protective over him, because she's like, I don't know what this crazy asshole's going to do next.
Because the other situation was, this guy also made it clear he was not allowing anybody outside of the tavern after
night.
hours. Like, he would lock the door from the outside. Like, you could not get out.
We were prisoners.
And on top of that, not only would he do that, he would also leave in the middle of the night and not come back till morning.
Which is super sketchy for us.
Yeah, which it was very, very sketchy. The other thing about this character that also started throwing them off, no one ever saw him eat, drink, or sleep. So he was just sort of this...
What was the thing Mira found out eventually? Oh no, it was from the fortune teller, wasn't it? No.
So eventually, the party gets together and they want to do a thing. Like, they want to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
The bartender tells him that the red-haired guy, who they end up learning his name is Salvin, is sort of been looking into it because he arrived about like a few days before the others did, and he's been looking into it, and that you should work with him. He agrees to work with the group, and says that they should go to the mayor's office. However, you do learn about the players also learned about a fortune teller, and I want to say Mira and him get in an argument. Got in an argument.
They did that often.
They got in an argument about where to go. He made it very clear that he refused to go visit the fortune teller,
Yeah,
as he
was
just
like,
considered
I'm not going
her,
to the fortune teller.
her
Like,
magic
we don't
basically
need
mumbo
you.
jumbo garbage.
Yeah. So Mira was like, well, we don't need you. I'm going to the fortune teller anyways. Who's with me? And so we split the party.
Yeah, first party split. The more animalistic group went with Mira, while the ranger and the wizard went with Salvin. So this was the first instance of the party deciding to make a choice, which technically they did make a good choice. They just fucked up on some of the choices they made here.
And as you'll see, so keep going.
So the group that went to the fortune teller found this fortune teller's shop. It was kind of just like a little place. The door was open, and they sort of walked in to find this like older woman. They got some information out of her. That was they basically found out something was going on in the town that had been related to some sort of grievance that had existed in the past. Someone was getting revenge for something, likely.
It was like a big grievance done by a mass amount of people, and then also Mira was like, "All right, tell us what you know about this red-haired guy."
Yeah, because she was still in a pissy mood about him.
Always.
And the fortune teller was kind of cryptic, explaining that he was very dangerous, someone who shouldn't really be trifled with, but also shouldn't be here either. And then she passes out.
Well, yeah.
After giving them this information, she passes out, and it's been made clear to them that people are taken from their homes by these mist creatures that live in this town, and this person lives in this town. So what do? They leave her there unconscious in her unlocked shop, which they don't have the keys for.
One thing that they also had, she had this purple crystal ball as well, which is a big deal later on.
Yeah, but at the time, the players weren't catching
anything.
They didn't take anything.
Mm-hmm. We didn't really take her either.
Yeah, she just passes out. She passes out. No one
leave.
attempts to do a medicine check on her or anything. They just leave.
Yeah, we're like, okay, well, that's that, I guess. All right, we're gone, and we leave to go towards the mayor's house,
which the other group had gone to. When they got there, they discovered the place looked like it had been ransacked, sort of. When they got to his office, they found a couple of creatures attempting to steal a book. They managed to stop it from stealing said book, which I don't remember specifically what book it was that they got, but they got a couple books out of this. They got a trade record and like a historical stories book that just told stories. Both the books appeared damaged. They also got the mayor's journal, which appeared to be blank.
When was the dance party?
That was much later.
Okay, all right.
That was when you guys had to return to the mayor's house.
Okay.
Sorry. And so
they get this trade record in this historical record book. They actually end up leaving a bunch of stuff that they needed there too.
Yeah,
so
again, there was another purple crystal object that was on the mayor's dresser. They didn't really notice the fact that this was an object I specified. So they didn't take it. So they go downstairs to find more mist creature. They go downstairs and check the basement. They end up finding the mayor in the basement, rather shaken, but he still seems to be somewhat coherent.
And this is where our group comes in. And
then, they go to check the door, and they see that Salvin stops them as this is where this sort of comes to fruition, where they learn that he has the ability to see through walls and stuff like that, because his eyes are kind of weird. And he warns them that there's enemies outside the door. The other group shows up. and they don't coordinate at all of what they're going to do. Amurich attempts to
we
sneak in disguised as a mist creature, because the mist creatures don't appear to be paying attention to them.
Yeah, I did look like a mist creature, which
Yeah,
wasn't
and Mist
the smartest
Creature,
thing
as
that
she
I
walks
could have
in,
done.
the ranger and the wizard get ready to shoot at them, where Salvin, with his true sight, is just like, hold on, stop. And as he, sort of, runs up to you and says, what the fuck are you doing? Are you trying to get yourself killed?
And she's like, how the fuck do you know it's me? And so, but end up, like, I think this was the first combat, as, like, Salvin held open the door as we just, like, decimated the mist creatures.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Because at the time, I didn't want this character to participate in combat at all.
He was like, this is below me, I'm just gonna hold this door open.
Well, it wasn't. That's not what he was doing. It was more. He was trying to keep the mayor safe. As any of the enemies attempted to enter the building, he would have slammed the door in their face. But that didn't happen. So,
Yeah, we burned them to a crisp.
however, the other half of the party completely derped out. The barbarian throws the monkey monk. And
that
she
was
attempts to do a
entertaining.
somersault, rolls like a 4, and falls flat on her face. The rogue goes up and stabs ghost dogs.
Like, he did the only useful thing, really.
Yeah,
The kind of useful thing.
And this combat sort of plays out like Baby's first combat, pretty simple.
And since, like, no one else had really done a combat, it was a lot of... I think I had a wild magic roll during that.
You had a wild magic roll, and the first wild magic roll you got gave you a level up. I know a lot of the other players were kind of peeved about that.
Yeah, that was right. That was a level above. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So after this whole thing goes down, the party decides to return to the no. Salvin asks about what happened with the fortune teller, and when he finds out they just left her there, he flips out and runs off.
Mm-hmm.
So they're sort of left alone. It's been made clear to them that the residents aren't supposed to go outside, yet they still make the decision to haul the mayor across town, through the mist into the tavern. And of course, when they get there, the mayor has lost consciousness, so they don't really get to talk to him. Salvin comes back later that day saying the fortune teller had been dragged off. And he would have to search for her again tomorrow. They began to examine the books, and when they examined the books, this is when they discover the importance of
The fortune teller's facts.
the fortune teller. Well, not just the fortune teller's facts, but they also discover the importance of the crystals that they left behind in both locations.
Apparently, like 400 years ago, there was this gnome who brought in a crap ton of purple crystals, and they weren't really sold to...
No. The crystals were mined from a mine from the northern mountain. The gnome had nothing to do with the crystals.
Well, he was the one who sold them. It was in the trade record.
No.
Okay,
No.
whatever.
He
sorry.
he was completely not tied to them at all originally.
I had it written down in my notes. But
And your notes were wrong. I wrote the story.
yeah, that's why I said okay. And
Yeah. Anyway, so they discovered some things. Like they discovered that the town had been selling these crystals sort of as oddities, and that they were somewhat important. They sort of just, they share the information about the purple crystal ball, and they're like, well, shit, we sort of just left it there. And then at one point, I think Salvin goes upstairs to go check on the mayor. And Mira goes after him? Because I know there's a
Yeah,
scene where
because
they meet in
there
the
was
hallway and have the
information. Yeah,
discussion.
Mira had gotten information from the fortune teller that she wanted to like ask him about. Because she basically this whole time she's like, okay, what the fuck is this guy all about, etc. So she ends up asking him. I don't remember what she asked him, but she was basically like, the fortune teller said this. So what's up with you? What like why are you here? Basically.
And this is the time where the character explains where he doesn't know why he's here. He wants to leave because he needs to figure out why the hell he was sent here, and who the hell he is as well.
Because he doesn't remember anything.
He remembers like certain things that like things he can do. He remembers, but he doesn't remember who he is or how he got here. But at the same time, he's like, that information would make the others unsettled. You know what else would make them unsettled? If they found out you were hiding something from them.
And he's like, so what are those things on your back? You gonna tell me anything about those? And Mira's like, what? How does he know? Etc. I don't remember what he said after that. It was like,
I believe he said, "I know what you are."
I think it was like, how about let's mutually agree to not tell the others about each other and we'll be fine. Basically. It's like, you don't tell anything about me and I won't tell anything about you.
So in the morning, Salvin goes out to look for... Well, actually, during the night, Oh, yeah, now I remember. He went out to look for, the rogue's character, because this is the point where I wrote out the tiefling, because this is where he left the campaign. So Salvin had gone out to search for him during the night, went out to search for him again during the day, leaving the party alone to go to the mayor's house to get the crystal. 40 couldn't make it to the session, so he was written out as being sick. I remember that part. So
it was Valerian, the Draken, Maramir, and
Eldon and Mira.
Eldon, the wizard, and me. Yeah.
Which that ended up becoming an actual party that went on a lot farther, because anyway, so the group sort of makes their way to the mayor's house, and there had been whispering before the group 1 had encountered when they went to the mayor's house initially. The group that went to the mayor's house the first time and that never went to the fortune tellers. These whispers strike again, but the
NPC that canceled them out or like helped cancel them out wasn't there. So
and so I had everybody make saves. The barbarian Draken Marmor fails his save and starts to wander off. The party members don't really have the physical strength to stop him.
So Mira was like, all right, we have to get inside a building because these voices are outside. When we're inside a building, we're fine. We're fine when we're inside. So she's like, okay. So I remember I asked the DM, I was like, hey, can I tackle Maramir and cast Misty Step and it work on him too? And he's like, if you want to do a wild magic roll. And so I was like, okay, she does that. So Mira tackles Maramir, like, and tries to Misty Step into this house. It's like they're right near. I don't remember what I got, but
I don't remember the number, but it was originally a positive number because it was supposed to cast it on like enemies you were affecting, but because you had been casting a spell to affect your allies, it instead affected your allies. So suddenly the wizard and the ranger are left outside, dancing uncontrollably.
It was the irresistible dance spell. The irresistible dance spell basically was cast, and everyone failed. they they didn't have to worry about the voices anymore, at least, because the music was in their ears, but they couldn't stop dancing. They had to dance their way into the house.
So we then have this scene of the barbarian coming to see two of his more supposedly serious companions dancing the music he can't hear. Very confused.
Yep, it was very entertaining, I have to admit.
They do eventually make their way to the mayor's house, and then again make the dumb mistake of splitting up as Mira just sort of goes upstairs by herself.
You
On
know,
her own.
Good idea. Split the party.
Mira's
Let's
like,
be
all
honest.
right, you guys are taking too long. I have stuff I need to get. I'm gonna go up there and get it. And so she goes upstairs.
And
Alone.
by herself, she gets assaulted by this like specter that
It
is
was
way
so
past her
this-
capabilities.
She didn't realize it at first, and she was like gathering. She grabbed the crystal. She grabbed a couple of other things, put them in her bag, and as she didn't realize, because I failed my perception check, as this like thing came in through the window, this black shadow woman thing. It was the spectral shadow thing, and she turns around as it like coils this tendril around her neck and like raises her off the ground, starts choking her, and she said something. She said something. I don't remember what she said. It's in my notes somewhere. Oh, no,
It's
probably
not
getting
really that
honest.
important.
Yeah. So,
Yep, he's home.
Anyway, failed save after failed save later.
Yeah.
Mira's slowly dying, or quickly dying, to the specter.
Yeah. Mira is knocked unconscious.
And like as she's going unconscious, she sees Salvin bust into the room, and these snake-like tendrils of like Starry Night Sky magic like burst forth as like she goes unconscious towards her.
Yeah, and he ends up reviving her because she's not dead, but he's just like, you really need to learn to not do stupid things.
Yeah, he called Mira stupid a lot.
Well, saying someone does things that are stupid doesn't mean they're calling you stupid, though.
He did straight up call her names a lot
It's Salvin.
early on.
He did,
He
yeah.
was very much antagonistic to the party at this point because he was not supposed to be someone the players really liked.
Uh-huh.
Because the
He
DM did
wasn't
not like him.
terrible. Yeah, no one liked him at all. They just dealt with him because he was helping them.
Anyway, so at this point they're brought back to the tavern. The monkey girl is still recovering. This is where Crunky's character showed up for a short bit. I mean, he just did some generic clericy D&D stuff. They end up discovering that these crystals are some sort of like containers that hold things. And in order to, well, Salvin does some research on it, and well, unfortunately, because no one thinks to, double check to make sure the place is warded and safe from this new threat that seems to be more dangerous than the other creatures, I believe this is the point where all of the other NPCs are stolen, save for the bartender.
No, that was way later.
Was that way later? Was it after
It was
the
way
crystal?
later.
You're right,
Yeah.
you're right, okay.
It was like close to the end of his world.
No, it was
No, it
before the
was.
mist was raised. So it wasn't before the end of that section of the campaign. Because the bartender was still around.
The bartender was around for a long bit.
It was just
but
the incapacitated people, because there were
I
still other
believe the
people in
next big
town that were
thing-
hiding barricaded in their own homes.
Because this was recent after the tiefling was written out, I believe this is around like the army time.
No, that's after the mist is cleared. I remember that.
Okay. Well,
Specifically.
anyways, just go with whatever.
Um,
Because I know for a fact that they like were interested in like the poster on the bulletin board, and they talked about a lot of different things on that. They tried to get
Yeah, I'm trying to gloss over the less important
Yeah.
things. I'm just trying to hit the main points here.
Mhm.
I think
Well,
at some point the monkey recovers. Shenanigan.
they went into the first crystal to
Yeah,
practice.
yeah. It wasn't
Yeah,
intentional. They just like Salvin's room is cut off for some reason. And they tried to contact him. They managed to contact him. And they end up going into this crystal. It's sort of like a sub dungeon.
I think we threw in a room, or like a. Yeah. They contacted him via message, and because of that, he was able to find his way out. So Mira messaged Salvin's like, "Where are you? Because your room is entirely black. It's like a void in there." And like the Valerian had been slowly throwing different objects, random objects from the hotel into this black. Because basically, Salvin's room had turned into this room
It
of
was
nothing.
a
It
pocket
was just
dimension
darkness.
door.
Yeah.
So it was.
Yeah. So.
You can't see through it unless the owner wanted you to. The owner was not.
Wanting anyone to see through it. So Valerian was just throwing like candlesticks in there and like random things that weren't important. And Mira's like, all right, this is his room, so I'm going to just message him, where the fuck are you? And he's like, oh, yes, that's how I get out. And he was able to find his way out.
Anyway, they end up going into it. They fight a boss. During the fight,
The boss was a box.
yeah, the boss was a
when-
box.
It was just this cube in the middle of the room, and this is what ended up writing the monkey out, is the monkey tried to fight the cube.
He tried to fight the cube, and when I was explaining to him how he rolls flurry of blows,
The
He
cube
got-
apparently was too OP for him, so he got really annoyed with the whole dice rolling thing.
no. It was he rolled
the OP
to attack
magic.
twice. If you roll flurry of blows as a monk, when you're attacking unarmed, first of all, monks make two unarmed attacks. That's what they do. They dual wield their fists.
Basically,
And if you make flurry of blows, you make two additional unarmed attacks. So he made two armed attacks and said he was using flurry of blows. I told him, please roll the dice 2 more times. And he didn't. And I was just trying to explain to him, look, you roll 4 times. Roll 4 times. And he just got pissy and left.
Yeah, and so the box was too much for him
Yeah.
with flurry of blows, so he left.
So
Which I find is really funny.
and Crunky didn't stop showing up after this point, and I think it's more because he got busy in real life rather than
Yeah.
being annoyed with the campaign.
So ultimately, we fight the box. And
They
we
beat
get
the
out.
box.
We beat the box. I'm very proud of us that we beat the box. Very good.
And as they beat the box, they're
Taken back into the regular room.
and as they're taken back into the regular room, I forget how, but
Wasn't that lifted the mist?
no, they had to fight the boss in the graveyard.
Oh yeah, the graveyard.
I forget. Yeah, that's right. While doing investigating, they had discovered the town had no graveyard for some reason, even though the bartender was like, I think we had one at some point, but I don't remember. It's kind of fuzzy.
And then Salvin was basically like, this big of an operation needs an anchor point. And ultimately, basically, that anchor point is probably the graveyard, wherever that graveyard is supposed to be. So we have to go find the graveyard.
Yep, and so they went to go fight this boss. And
really cool.
it was
I like
basically
that,
a giant skeleton. Where they had to smash a thing on the ceiling. It took them forever to figure out they had to smash a thing on the ceiling. I forgot. They decided to fly there, and for some reason, when Mira was casting fly or something happened, all I remember was polka music happened at this point.
Oh my gosh, I remember the fucking polka music. Jeez. Like, okay, I want to be perfectly frank. When Mira's magic was extremely unpredictable, Miss is not joking. It was so unpredictable that random shit occurred all the fucking time.
Yeah, I'm
Like
leaving out some of
random
the.
polka music as we fly to this place, and then like when we're inside, like for instance, one part like future time when Eris is there. But anyways, a pizza delivery guy pops out of her bag. Is like, "Hey, here's a pizza. You ordered this?" And Mira's like, "How are you in my bag, human?" And he's like, I'm here to deliver your pizza. Take it, please, ma'am." And she had a pizza that she just was like, "I don't know what this is." Stuff into bag.
That was earlier because I remember that accidentally gets left at the mayor's house during the escapades there.
Oh, so basically that was a big trusting point for Mira and Salvin though, like because Eris, I forgot.
Yeah, oh, now I remember. Some things happened in
Yes,
between
that's
going
what
to
it
the cemetery
was.
and there was some
So
things.
basically, he was like, "What's wrong with your egg? What's wrong?"
Yeah,
She's like,
Mira's
"This."
egg started being really hot, and she was just like flipping out because she doesn't know what to do with it
She's
because she
like,
knows
"I
nothing
thought
about
this
it.
was I thought this was a paperweight. Why is this metal ball being hot?" And he's like, it's not a paperweight. It's an egg." And she's like, "What?" And she's like, "Well, it's hot." He's like, "Yeah, something's wrong with it. Let me fix it." And he there was this hex on it apparently.
No, it had a
which-
hex on it. It had a really high level hex on it
Well,
that
what
was
took off
suppressing
the
it.
hex?
He did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He took the hex off.
You said he threw a hex on it.
No, it had a hex on it, and he got rid of it.
That I know.
Um,
It doesn't change what you said. You said he threw a hex
Sorry.
on it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that then. So he gets rid of the hex, and all of a sudden, and he's in there and he helps. Like he's like, "All right, just chill, just relax. It's just hatching egg." And the egg. hatches,
Yeah,
and it
this
would
is
never
also
have
the
been-
part where, so at this point, he's also tried to create alcohol before, but it's so fucking potent it knocks people out. So he has, like, this bottle that's basically like a bottle of vodka, like a large bottle of, like, Grey Goose vodka, but it's full of, like, super alcohol. That's, like, knock-dead alcohol type of alcohol. And he
and
just starts, like, chugging it
everyone keeps-
afterwards.
Yeah, he's just drinking it like not. Nor like he just kind of swigs out of it like all the time, and however like Valerian and Marmir, who are both alcoholics, try to drink from it, they instantly get passed out. So there was a lot of downtime.
Yeah, there was a lot of downtime from the
Ay, ay, ay.
drunkards continually getting themselves drunk, and them also being kind of pissy that all of a sudden, like, the only alcohol is now being drunk by the guy who doesn't appear to get drunk and just, like, chugs the stuff that shots of will make them pass out.
So yeah, he helps Mira out, and so that was a big deal, big trusting bit because she's like, okay, he might not be actually evil and out to kill me, so that's nice. And he helps her hatch this egg. And then they had a baby Eris. And then that's when the pizza delivery guy came. And I also got a magic bag of bacon because Mesa likes the word bacon. And he was and
I
rolled
didn't like
lots
the
of
word.
random
I
stuff.
didn't necessarily like the word bacon at the beginning. It's just we said bacon so much during the campaign that's grown on me.
Well, it's because you gave me a magic bag of bacon and we didn't have any tasty food coming into the place because no one could come into the town.
I want to make this clear. So when I was making this wild magic table, half of the things that went onto it were just random things popping into my head that I was just like, that could work. A good chunk of them were never really story driven until, in fact, the table was never intended to be a major story device until Rogue started spamming crits on it, of course, because it's also at some point, I think when they were on their way back from the mayor's, she
I've
rolled
got,
her
like,
first crit.
5. Yeah. And so, no, it was, I rolled my first crit because I remember what my crit, the crit was at the level up, or was that the 19? Because I know when we were on the way back from the cemetery, that was my first crit.
Oh
because
yeah,
I
back
was-
from the cemetery, that's right.
Yeah. So when we were so basically, fast forward, Eris is there. It was very trusting. Like she kind of gained a little bit of trust with Salvin from there, and so Salvin's like, "Okay, you guys go into the cemetery. I'm gonna fight off all these mistwalkers that are gonna try to come in and kill you. You need to shut this anchor down, please.
Yeah.
Thank you."
Because the whole horde was essentially descending on them.
And so they go in, and he's like, "Please be quick about it." And so they go in.
They're not quick
eventually
about
solve
it at
the
all.
puzzles. We're not quick about it at all. We kind of like, ooh, shiny, and we look at everything, and we finally fight this skeleton. And during that fight, I end up rolling a crit. the thing eventually dies. We leave, and Salvin was like barely fending off the rest of them, right? Because
Well,
there's so
because the
many.
the
It's just like,
specter showed up and it was actually giving him some trouble.
yeah, the
There
black
was literally
specter.
like piles of these specters all over the place,
Yeah,
and
the
he had
like
looked pretty beaten.
mistwalkers.
But as the sun comes out, it sort of drives this black specter off. Um,
And we had done it.
yeah, and
And
like on the
so,
way back, it's just like boom, time stops,
yeah,
and Mira's
so
just
when
like,
they
"What
were
the fuck's
going
going on?"
back, yeah, when we were going back, all of a sudden time freezes for Mira. Everyone around her is frozen, no one's moving, and then she looks up and she sees this megalithic starry night sky dragon look down at her and it's like, "What do you want to know, child?" And Mira's like, "Wait, you're meaning she?" And Mace is like, "You can ask him one question and he will answer you."
And I think we cut the session there
Yeah,
too.
we cut the session off there, so I had like a week to think about it. And so basically, Mira asks
Back then,
him,
it was more
I
like
would
two
like,
days.
it was like 2 days. Mira asks him, I'd like to know the past, present, and future of me, my family, and my realm. And you remember what he said, or do you want me to say
I
it?
remember he said he couldn't tell you much about the future. At the present, you would people were alive, but you probably wouldn't like what's going on there. And he basically told her the past of how her existence came to be, how she came to be where she was here.
Yeah, so he said basically
He told
how
of a prophecy that Tiamat had falsified and sort of secretly slipped
laid it
into
as a
Bahamut.
trap.
Who,
Yeah.
if you know anything about Bahamut, you'll know he's one of the things about him is he's absolutely obsessed with things like prophecies.
Yeah, and the prophecy was basically is like as long as this girl's alive, destruction and chaos is going to come upon your realm, basically. Which I mean, as Missa was saying earlier, isn't necessarily exactly a lie. Kind of did happen and come to fruition in a roundabout way. But that's the reason why everyone was constantly trying to kill her and why she had to leave her realm in the first place. So she figures out, okay, all of that's a lie because Tiamat wanted to get a one up on her brother, apparently, from her understanding of that time. She was like,
Okay,
so,
I'm gonna use this point to interject right now because I want to bring this up. There was multiple things that could have happened with that crit depending on what point the story was in, which would have massively changed the direction of how things were going to go. Um, for instance, did you know that when this campaign was originally scripted, there was two complete sides that could have been picked, depending on whether or not that crit even happened. For instance, had that crit happened later, after Salvin's disappearance, first of all, Salvin would not have invoked an avatar of Orn had you not sort of brought his attention to you. It would have instead, he would have, at the point where the soldiers arrived later, would have invoked an avatar of Tiamat, as Tiamat is the opposite to Bahamut. And you would have seen this, massive five-headed dragon creature attack and destroy this army. And then he would have died, because you would not have had any crit to fight that shit off.
wow.
Which means
Okay, so
the crit you would have gotten later, instead of Orange showing up to answer your question, Tiamat would have showed up to answer your question.
No, I don't like it. Okay. Well,
Now, originally back then, the story was written somewhat different. It was more open-ended. Like, the events that happened ended up determining what the story would be. At this time, I only sort of had a vague understanding of where everything was going to go.
So let's like clue them in on what was actually going on. So the time goes back forward, and that was when the mist was semi-lifted, basically.
The mist had been lifted on the town and the surrounding countryside. However, the mist could still be seen on the horizon, covering the forests and things like that. But because of this, people could go outside it again.
Yeah.
And it had been a month since they'd all seen the sun, sort of. So they were all really excited to see it. And this is sort of where I gave the party their first major downtime. And during this downtime, a huge group of assassins shows up to kill Mira.
And they say,
And they have two
Mi-
people. They have the tiefling from earlier that ran away, and another one, the one he was looking for, that he had showed a wanted poster that was on the board to Mira and asked her to help him find her.
and so they basically say, Miriam and Astariel come out here or everyone dies. Or they both die.
Yeah, well, and they were going to attempt to kill everybody else in the barn. Salvin was just sort of like, this is your
Why did
problem,
they
fix... Well, he was more like, this is your problem, fix it. Until you...
Amira's panicking. Like, she's shaky. She's like, I don't know how to fix it. My only thing is as I run, and I stopped running, and now they're here, and there's nothing that I can do, basically. And he asks, well, why are they after you? What did you do? And she's like, I just existed.
And, like there was...
Why are you making the dog bark? What the fuck?
Dog! What's your problem, dog man?
Jesus.
Because that's the fact is, like, the reason that all these assassins are coming after her is because she was the winged nobility that was born with uncontrollable magic in that draconic realm, and everyone was like, all right, that's the prophecy. She has to die now. So,
This clearly sets Salvin off as... It's like one of his big character traits is he's pissed. He does not like discrimination because he's basically been discriminated his long-ass existence simply for being what he is. And he's not happy with that, so he's already in a foul mood.
and he doesn't exactly know the full extent of what would happen because he doesn't remember everything. What would happen if he does this?
He sort of... He does this thing that's described later as breaking the veil, where when he's at full strength, breaking the veil means nothing for him. It's not dangerous. He's currently at a very weak state. Breaking the veil is literally mortal, like mortal failure. His body begins to just die. So he breaks the veil to summon an avatar of a lost forgotten god, to basically murderize the entire, like, battalion. Like, 50
And when he
people
says
showed up.
Avatar of Orin, so basically this monolithic dragon paw just stomps everything.
Squish!
Squish! And they're all dead, and then Salvin passes out, and Mira's like, he just saved my life, he saved everyone's life. Alright, we gotta help him. So let's just get him back up to the bed, tend to the girl who's over there, because they had killed the tiefling guy.
And they said they were going to kill her.
In front of them. Yeah. And so they get the tiefling girl in there, and they get Salvin up to a room. That evening, Mira grabs Eris, and she's like, all right, obviously it's not safe here anymore. We can't stay here. I don't want to... She's had people die because of her staying in one place far too many times. She's like, all right, I'm gone. Because if she stays around somewhere, that's what happens, is everyone dies. So she grabs her bag, and she's about to go out the window, because, like, this is one time where she's like, they already know where I am, I'm going to just fly away. And she hears in the arcane language, she doesn't know it's the arcane language, but she hears in a language she doesn't understand, but she knows the true meaning behind it. It says, don't leave. Don't go. And it just says those two words, and she says, fine, I'll stay. And she takes a step back, and she, like, takes a deep breath. She's like, I'm not going to go right now. We'll see how it plays out. Basically, that's what's going on in her head as she stays. The next day, they have this, they had a lead that they had gotten of this drow person to the east.
First she has to pull the same word that she doesn't really understand but uses anyway to, like, pull Salvin out of his unconscious stupor. He's still very bad in condition, but he seems to be not dead.
So basically, like, she went into his room one day, and, like, he was not doing okay. He wasn't waking up. He was like, basically his body was failing.
By the way, so again, where this could have deviated, had Tiamat showed up his message to you instead would have been stay safe. He would have not encouraged you to stay behind.
That makes sense.
Which would have probably resulted in a lot more different, as now the party, understanding the danger of Mira running around by herself in a valley she can't escape, is extremely scary. They would have to chase after you, which would result in time passing and the loss of another, who eventually ended up becoming somewhat crucial NPC.
Oh, Azazel. Yeah.
No.
No, wait. The other one.
Daria.
Daria. Yes, Daria.
Because
Well, let's continue the story before you go off on the hypotheticals, because they don't understand it.
Yeah, anyway.
So basically what had happened is she went in there, he was failing, she's like, okay, crap. As she tranced for a second, she saw this ghost of Salvin, or she didn't know it was of Salvin, but this like spectral form floating away from his body. And she said she tried to copy best she could what he had said to her that
she got like an
evening
18
before.
for history, I think.
Yeah.
It was a reasonably
And
high
so
roll.
she said, don't go in the arcane language. And he stabilized, and he wasn't dying anymore.
Well, I mean, he was still dying. He just tried to hold on a little longer.
Yeah, so he wasn't gone. Let's just say that. So they go off to follow this lead to the east. They end up battling a bunch of spiders, and Eris was around. And Eris at this point was medium. And she talked a lot. She's the cutest thing ever. Anyways, so they're battling these spiders, and the spiders decide, okay, they're these blinky spiders, weren't they?
There's something called phase spiders, which means they're able to swap in and out of the material plane and the ethereal plane, meaning they can move around freely, uninhibited on the ethereal plane. They have the same movement. They can swap with a bonus action. And it makes it seem like they teleport because you don't see where they move.
Yeah. So there was this one big boss one, if I remember correctly, and he decided to go for like the weakest links. And Eris was one of those weakest links that he perceived, so he started going after Eris. And
I want to make this clear too. Halfway through the dungeon, the party's like, okay, we're out of spells. We're gonna trade turns taking a nap in this corner that we think is safe.
Yeah, that's true. They took like a small nap in the corner. And we rested.
Wait, hold on. We can't ignore the thing that happened in the first fight because it's Mimi as shit.
Oh my god, was that flump time?
It was when you were at the entrance of the cave.
Oh,
Mira accidentally killed Eldon's owl with a critical fail on her Scorching Ray.
Yeah.
And I had her roll like, what was it, 10 D100s, and you got like 495 or something?
Yeah. It was a small cave.
Wow.
So they were in this tiny cave that was super closed off, and then 490 something flumps just pop out of nowhere. At the time, this was a slightly modified version of the normal thing that appears on the Wild Magic table, which is roll 1d10 flumps that appear. They're all terrified of you. So I said, let's up the ante and make it 100 d10 flumps, or just 10 d100s.
Yeah.
This would have been like not that big a deal had it been in like an open area. This was in a super closed off cave, so the ceiling was filled.
Drowning in flumps.
They literally swimming in flump.
And no one could move, and no one could do anything. It was just the spiders couldn't do anything. There was one spider that like tried to pop back into the regular plane and ended up dying
Because he got telefragged.
Because he got taken apart from the inside because flumps. And man, Mira was like burning them and incinerating them as much as she could. She's like, burn everything in front of me.
So the party is constantly listening to these like telepathic creatures flipping the hell out, screaming in pain as they're burned alive.
And we can't move. It was, this took like an hour to get out of flumps. Jeez Louise. And in the meantime, we ended up killing one of the little smaller spiders, like, and trying to get out of flump. And, oh, it was terrible. It was the worst magic roll ever.
That sounds hilarious, honestly.
Bad roll at a bad time.
And man, the DM loved it. He was just laughing his ass off as we're all like dying on the
The
inside.
absurdity of the
Please.
situation was amazing at the time, and it's still hilarious to this day.
That's like, oh man. So basically, we finally get out of the flumps, and we took a nap in the corner. And then we fought the big bad spider, which this thing was attacking Eris. Mira freaks the fuck out, and this was like after they had hit it a bunch. It had like 18 health, and she totally overdoes it as she crits a wild magic, and gets a 20. She kills this. I think it was a scorching ray because I used it all the time back then. That was like my go-to spell.
I think.
Ray.
Oh no! You had to hit him twice. The first roll. I remember because something else happened in this dungeon where you forcibly forgot Scorching Ray at that point.
That was when no because we had not found Maldoda yet. That happened with Maldoda, which was.
Oh, you're right. I forgot.
This was Scorching Ray. I remember. So
I just remember it happened in that dungeon when you were having a freak out.
Yes.
Yeah. The other freak out is when Eldon gets shot. That's right.
Yeah, and so she's flipping her shit. She kills the spider. A crystal pops out, and as she touches it, it has like sparkly night sky energy that fills it. And she's like, huh, weird. And she gets this send from their Stone of Far speech because Salvin made her a Stone of Far speech at one point when she says like don't go or something, like he was still dying.
He had made it afterwards because there was a few days between him recovering. Yeah, so it was basically a telephone that could
so the Katarina, which was the tiefling they saved from the army, calls her up and she's like, hey, yeah, so basically...
I don't think it was Katarina. I think it was Callista.
It was Callista. Sorry, it was Callista. I just remember League of
I
Legends
know
character.
it was a League of Legends character name, but keep in mind, Callista is one of the recommended tiefling names on the tiefling page. So I didn't get this from League.
Yeah. So Callista's like on the phone. She's like, hey, you guys should probably get back. Salvin kind of flipped out. He was pacing around downstairs. His nose started bleeding, and then he passed out. He's not looking very good. You should come back. And Mira's like, all right, guys, we're dropping everything. The dude that saved our lives he needs help, basically. It's like, come on, let's go quickly, because he's dying, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. So what happened with her crit 20 roll was she got basically a magic halo that had a true res spell built into it. That if she would ever die, she would immediately be resurrected again. And the residual of this magic energy being released was released into the crystal as she directly contacted it. And these purple crystals are sort of like magic storage devices. So the residual energy was stored by the crystal. And as she takes it back, she's flipping out with a bunch of different ways to figure something out. Eventually...
I remember what it was. So basically, she goes up to his room, and she realizes... she realized a bunch of things, like this guy has 2 hearts. He's kind of... They're stopping. He's dying. I think, like, maybe they had stopped. She was trying to figure out how to bring him back, because he was going to die. And so she's flipping out. She's like, all right, his gauntlet's off. It's over there. I have this crystal. So she was like she tried the don't go thing before. Again, she doesn't have any healing spells because Mira's never had healing spells. She doesn't.
Sorcerers can't have healing spells.
They don't have healing spells. So, she's like, okay, he's always wearing this gauntlet, so maybe it's something with the gauntlet. And so she's holding the crystal in one hand, and she takes his hand and touches his gauntlet with it, and the crystal flies from her other hand into the gauntlet. the gauntlet slides onto his hand, and he sits up with like a gasp, and he's like, and he's not dying anymore.
Well, yeah, because he just got hit with true res energy, which it's later described that he can basically eat any magic spells like breakfast, as long as he's capable of doing so. If they're offered willingly, it's no challenge, but he can also block and absorb them. However, he's still nowhere near at the same strength he was before.
Yeah, so basically Mesa like dumbs him down to be sort of on our level, kinda, sorta, but a bit more powerful.
At this point, they were like, you guys were like level 6, because he didn't join the party still. He was still recovering at this point.
Yep. He was just kind of there, NPC guy.
Mhm.
But Mira, at this point, she trusted him a whole lot more, especially after he killed all of the assassins. And she's like, all right, this guy has saved my life. He's saved other people's lives. He saved my life multiple times. And now it's time to pay it forward. So that's like the initial thought process that went there. But yeah, she reses him with this thing. And I think this is the time where like they're getting closer as friends. Like they're actually becoming kind of friendly to each other instead of always antagonistic towards each other. So yes, they save him. He's alive. Did he do anything? I forget. I don't think so.
I think like all of a sudden he's like starting to get hungry. He's needing sleep.
Yes! He needed to sleep and he needed to eat and human things, which was like, whoa, you're hungry? Okay, that's weird. Cool, I will get you food. So it was very interesting.
Here, you like bacon?
Yeah, I had a lot of bacon.
At
Bacon
this
was
point,
a
they
very
had gotten a little more food because they could actually go out and hunt on the plains and stuff. So the ranger was bringing in actual meat to use. They were
dog.
getting a little more well off as their characters leveled up. Anyway, after that fiasco's over, they returned to the cave again. Oh wait, no, they had to go in the crystal first to open the door, like the secret wall. That's right. So they had a spider boss fight, another one, that involved spiders falling from the ceiling. And
I remember that. Yeah. Sorry.
Eventually it was the wizard that figured out what to do. In fact, I think he was the one who solved all the puzzles.
Yeah, he was. I never really solved any because I'm a bad puzzle solver.
Oh, hey, that's me.
Yeah, you really are the replacement Eldon. Not gonna lie. You're the replacement Eldon, Nero's the replacement Valerian, and Lily's the replacement Marmor.
Yeah, that's so true though. Sorry, I just realized.
I'm the replacement for who?
You're the replacement for the guy who is
Valerian, you're a whole lot less
you're
edgy,
the
though.
world savvy jokester. That's what he was a world savvy jokester.
Then he became really edgy, but yeah.
I guess you're both more Valerian, though. I mean, he's still kind of Eldani, but you're both closer to Valerian more, because we don't really have a straight up, completely socially awkward bookworm. Though you have been reading a lot.
Actually, I think we had that originally. His name was Badger.
No.
He was not a bookworm.
No, he was more Marmor.
Eldon was,
Good point.
yeah, he was more Marmor. Eldon was like constantly studying, constantly like super antisocial. Like he had a terrible charisma, but like he was friendly. He just didn't do good socially or in the world at all.
Anyway, so they solve this crystal. They get a little bit of a power boost, I think. Did I give him a power? I don't remember if I
Yeah.
gave you a power boost then or later.
We were slowly getting more powerful.
I think you got a minor one. It was like you picked a stat and you got like 2 points in it or something. Anyway, from there you guys returned to the cave. The wall was open. You fought a zombie drider who fired like these acid poison arrows. That's where you now I remember. That's where you lost that thing.
Yeah, so basically, Eldon got hit, I think.
He got hit, and it almost killed him in one shot.
Yeah, and Mira's like, oh shit! And so she casts Scorching Ray, and it had a wild magic roll tagged to it, and I rolled poorly.
It was like a
like a 3 or something like
3
that.
or a 4, very low.
Oh dang!
And
Not a crit
basically,
fail.
it felt like that spell got like ripped from her. She didn't remember it at all. It just didn't exist anymore. And like my interpretation of it was like that a sorcerer's life force is basically like their magic, and so that being torn away is just like a devastatingly painful experience. Not cool. Hello?
Hey, Tyler.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
We're not playing D&D. It's just a recap session of everything that you know because I've already told you everything.
Oh.
They're
It's also being recorded, so your O is recorded.
Oh no!
Yep.
I had to get that one in there.
So, so she cast that, it got ripped from her. She's, the thing went down, didn't it?
It goes down at some point. You mean, I don't remember if that's what kills
I don't
it.
think I think like I cast one of the Scorching Rays and then the others just didn't work as that happened, and Mira's just out for the count, man.
I mean, she tried to help, but yeah, no, like, it was sort of more left on the other two. They managed to defeat the thing, of the other three, but Marmor was only half a character. They managed to defeat the thing. They make their way into the back of the cave.
Mira, I know for a fact passed out. Like she was walking the hallway. She's like, "Listen, I'm slowing you down," because she's like,
She was tired.
going
She
super
wanted
slow.
to
I
sleep.
was super tired. So she goes and like sits next to the wall and passes out. And at that time, Salvin tried to contact on the Stone of Far Speech, and no one answered because she's out of it. In the back, they found this basically like spider web cocoon. And inside of it was this little drow girl, who looked very like starved.
Malnourished. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was dying basically. So I don't remember why Solomon was trying to contact them, but he freaked out that they didn't talk to him. Anyways.
He at the time he was keeping tabs on you, and when your magic he would basically contact you every time your magic flared.
Yeah, I remember whenever my magic flipped out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so they get the drow girl and they end up going all the way back home, taking care of her. And when they got there, Mira's still like out of it. And this is when you can explain this part because I don't exactly know.
So as you get back, Salvin is like hysterical. Like, what the fuck? Why didn't you call me? Actually, no. At some point, you do end up. Somebody picks up.
No, because we got back, and he was like, "Why didn't anyone answer?" Because he's like pacing downstairs with this crutch. And he's like hobbling along with like this crutch stick thing.
He was using his staff as a crutch.
Yeah, and so he was like, "Why didn't anyone answer me?" And they're like, "Was Mira the one who talked, or did someone else answer?"
I don't remember.
Was she being carried? I thought she was being carried.
I think you were out. Yeah, you were. Because the next scene between you and him occurs in your bed, so you were out.
Yeah. So basically, like, oh, she's been passed out. Sorry, we didn't answer. We didn't hear it.
It's like, what the fuck happened?
And like, oh, she kind of like her magic kind of flipped out, and she just stopped working. She broke.
So, this is the first time I actually had him use like the interface that you've seen recently. in which he uses the interface to take a piece of himself, aka his knowledge and understanding of Scorching Ray, and give it to Mira to try and ease her pain. Um, and when he does it, he's just like, you know, I've never actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever done that before. Also, that could have been really dangerous. Glad you're okay.
Well, yeah, he didn't
Ah,
even realize
danger.
this. He didn't even realize this at first, but or he didn't comment on it if he did. Um, and as she had this happen to her, she woke up. Her scorching ray no longer looked like a scorching ray; it looked like Starry Night Sky magic. And then, whenever she tranced, she slowly started to see, like, these little Starry Night Sky tendrils of her energy grow, kind of. Like it
Like, it
took
was
up more.
spreading into you.
Yeah, yes, until it was like half of her magic was this Starry Night Sky stuff. And she'd bring it up to him. She's like, "Hey, look at this." She's like, "I have you seen this? Look." And she showed him. She's like, "I can see this Starry Night Sky stuff. It's real weird. Do you know what this is?" He's like, "I'm amnesiac. I don't know what the fuck's going on." So, yeah. Eventually,
That's jumping ahead a bit.
yeah.
Anyway, so now I can go a little bit. So first of all, because the party decided to go to this area first, originally the way the campaign was scripted is they were going to be swayed to go either north or south. But because there was really no triggers to go either of those directions, because no one really tried to question the tiefling girl that much, and no one was really interested in investigating 40's monkey character's home, they instead went to one of the higher level areas, which resulted in tougher fights, which leveled them up. But the advantage of deciding to go here first is, if you had decided to go here first, an NPC would join the party of this little drow girl named Daria. And at the time it was just like, how do I do this? Oh, let's see. An outcast drow that doesn't really like Lolth, but for not good reasons. Like, the reason why she doesn't like Lolth is because she thinks Lolth is not cruel enough. Like, because Lolth is cruel, but within reason. This character was actually not a good person at all. Anyway, she's super duper lonely, though. And eventually it does end up going to Lolth to ask for a daughter. Lolth sort of like pawns off her own daughter onto her, birthing a demigod, essentially. But one of the stipulations for this is Lolth was trying to mold Daria as a character into being a entity that would hate everyone. It would, like, the ultimate form of a sadomasochist, thinking that pain is pleasure in a way that she enjoys inflicting pain on others so much and does not understand that it is wrong, to a point where she doesn't understand anything other than pain, to a point where she would basically be Lolth's ultimate weapon, was what Lolth was going for. But the party sort of interfered with that and fucked it up by being there. But anyway,
so
had they not decided to go there early, the girl would have died. But instead, they ended up getting a sorcerer, another sorcerer on the team,
Yay!
who had also
sorcery.
very high artillery magic. So,
So with this, like, they hadn't, when Mira was feeling better, they then like interrogated her, not interrogated her, but like ruthlessly. They're just like, "Hey,
they just
who
sort of
are you?"
asked her like who she was, that kind of
Questions.
things.
And
And then Lolth possessed her and was just like, ha ha ha, I'm evil. You be nice to my daughter now, or I'ma murder you.
and
Really
so
ominous.
Mira and Salvin, Mira, from my character's point of view, she wanted to protect this little girl. Like, she was like, okay, like, Eris always hung out with her, and like, she would always sleep next to Eris with Mira right there, and like,
Well, that only ended
Mira
up happening
legit
later.
wanted to. Well, no, she legit did want to protect her, and so like she would take care of her. They got like closer. Obviously, it didn't happen immediately, but both Salvin and Daria were close with. Salvin and Mira were both close to Daria.
Valerian ended up sort of becoming close to Daria, though he ended up dropping the ball way later down the line.
Yeah, when he was edgelord. So and I bring this up because the next place they went was the forest.
Uh,
Because I remember, wasn't it the forest?
I don't remember where he went.
Because what was to the west? I forget.
Yeah, it was the forest.
Yeah.
You did go to the forest, and
So we went
oh,
to
and Salvin.
Monkeyland. Yeah.
No, that's right. That's right. You guys got a letter asking for the hunter.
Wait,
no, it wasn't
when did we
asking
get
for the
a
hunter.
letter?
They were asking for the person that had summoned the avatar.
Wait, when did we get that?
That's before you went to the forest. That's why you got the letter. That's why you went to the forest, because they had asked for Salvin, and Salvin's like, well, I'm not really in the best
Salvin
condition
in
to
the
fight,
forest.
but I guess we should probably go and find out what's going on there. They may know something.
There was no one there, wasn't it?
No, there were people there. Remember, you went and there was a whole society of wood elves and to the west. There was a whole society of wood elves and
So we went to the
Dryads.
west forest. I was talking about the north.
no, you didn't go there until the very end.
Oh, no, we went to the south the very end because those are the information goblins.
You went back to them then. You didn't go north was the last place you checked.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So we go to the west, which they're basically like, who summoned this avatar? We would like to know them, please, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we went there, and there's this like little town.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Well, I
Dryads.
mean, you first got captured in the middle of the night while stumbling around the forest. You could barely get around. One of the Dryads recognized Salvin, because he's a little on the famous side, especially among Celestials, and the Dryads have very close ties to their Celestial. Not Avandra, fuck. My brain failed me.
So basically, their deity knew who Salvin
The
was. So
deities
there's one
in
that-
general know who he is because he
Yeah.
used to work for a basically hired
And one of
organization.
them was like, "Oh, the hunter." Okay.
Yeah,
well,
which basically gave
Our
the
tree. Yeah, sorry.
it gave you guys. It turns out the reason why they had sent the letter was they were hoping the person who was strong enough to do this thing would help them rescue their
Fix their tree.
tree, which was
Yeah.
very much
So
dying.
They're
Cause,
like, "Oh, the hunter. Well, we have a broken tree. Please fix things."
Mhm, and he was just like, I don't know, okay.
At this point, I remember it was like, because Daria always would sleep near, because wasn't it around now that like Mira's like, all right, I don't really want to leave this guy on his own. Would you rather not like have him
you were all
wander around?"
taken with hoods over your head to this place.
Yeah. No, it was meaning like when they were staying there, because we stayed there for a
You
while.
did. You stayed there for a short time, then you went to go fight some half-dragon veterans and the giant statue. This is the first time Salvin used Oblivion Break, where he basically pummeled it into ruby dust.
Oh yeah, the castle! I remember! Yeah. Got it. I'm good.
Anyway,
Anyways, keep talking. I'll stop.
it had been discovered that some soldiers of some half-dragon soldiers had been attacking and terrorizing their forest as well. So they sort of joined up with this other Dryad character that was more battle war.
She hated wizards. The first thing
uh
she did was
like
kidnap
first thing she
Eldon in the
kidnapped
middle of the
Eldon, tied
night.
him to a tree, and then left him for dead. Valerian had to go out and find him.
You're such a nice person.
I make characters. Those characters have motivations, and they do what they
Yeah,
want
her
to
name
do.
was Sylvari, and she hated wizards for a reason. There's a backstory reason, but basically, yeah, the first thing she did, they get abducted, they get taken here. They're like, oh, well, you're not evil, so we will let you be. And this one character who was going to be going with them was like, I hate you. She like kidnaps him in the middle of the night, takes him out to the forest, ties him to a tree. Um, and I don't remember how anyone found him. I think in the morning we were all ready to go, and everyone was like, "Where's Eldon?"
Uh, Everybody had gotten the message cantrip at this point, and we were sort of using it like sending. Because that was another wild magic roll, is everybody learned message. Even the people that didn't know magic. So they would always use message at the time, and at the time I was just kind of like letting it slide, where people would be like, oh, I use message so nobody sees that I'm doing this. I'm like, you guys didn't read what message means, did you? But anyway, they go to fight this thing. It's basically a fort full of half dragon veteran, half red half dragon veterans. They fight their way through. There's also some wyverns that Salvin dispels, which makes Miro slightly happier that he didn't kill them.
Yeah.
They come across this huge ass statue that attacks them. They were supposed to defeat it by
I remember
making it plow through walls.
Oh yeah, no, he just broke it.
But the specific circumstance that guarantees triggers his already charged first ult, which was Oblivion Break, triggers, and he just basically...
What was his trigger again? Do you remember?
He had to critical succeed on a saving roll he had just critically failed on. What's the and he crit failed. Was a little bit crit failed, then crit succeeded on attempting to reroll. Because this was Oblivion Break that was allowing him to do it, not Breach the Veil, which at the time you really thought I had used Breach the Veil there, which I'm like, no, he wouldn't do that because he knows it's dangerous now. But Oblivion Break
Mira
allows
was
him to
like,
reroll,
"Don't."
but it doesn't do anything unless he crits, which he crit, and I was sitting there going, this just happened. I crit failed, then crit succeeded, just when the first mechanic-based boss fight I was supposed to throw at my players happens. Ass! Because the point of this boss fight is they were supposed to, like, run from this thing by hiding, because it was too big to fit through doorways, so it would just plow through walls. But plowing through the walls dealt massive amounts of damage to it.
With this, again, these are the combat details aren't as important as mainly what was going on there. From my understanding, right?
I mean,
It's cool combat. But if we go through every single combat,
no,
that
we
we've
won't.
ever
This was a major combat.
Basically, the big thing that, like character wise and plot wise, was like everyone started second guessing Mira. They're like, Mira, why aren't you fucking attacking these? Like, why are you so hesitant as to go and attack these? No one understands that she's like a dragon elf. She's like, just attack them, kill them. They're bad. Stop it.
Because at this point, Mira's still trying to hide her secrets.
And she's like, she attacks like as few as she could, and whenever she did
There is a
attack
wild
one, they
magic that
caused
turns her
magic.
purple at some point.
That's after the forest.
No, that was in the forest, I
Oh,
remember.
that was in the forest, yeah. In the forest.
During this fight, at some point, she gets turned purple? Anyway, but so I was extra miffed that this character was still around because I'm like, God fucking damn
Yeah,
it!
he was trying so hard to kill him, and
I
he
tried so hard to kill him, and then the first fight I put him back into proper, he completely destroys. Even though I've nerfed him, he completely destroys the boss, the first major mechanical boss I was supposed to have the players fight. Because the big point about this boss is it would have actually killed some players, like outright killed them, and there wouldn't have been anything you could have done about that. But no, Salvin was just like, ult time, and I'm like, this is an ult trigger. This is an ult trigger. I can't not use it, because this is what the character would do at this point. And my rules for playing NPCs is never do anything with them they wouldn't do just because it makes you disappointed. Like, for the players, it's fine. They don't have to sit through a boss fight that could have killed some of their characters. It wasn't a big deal for the players. It was sad for the DM, because the DM had wanted you guys to go through this boss fight, because he wanted to see if anybody would figure it out. But no. He just destroys this thing. And at the time, Oblivion Break only did maybe, like, upwards of 800 to 1,000 damage. This thing only had, like, 600 hit points. Which... keep in mind, at the time, the players per round did, like, 20 to 40 damage.
Anyways, moving forward.
Yeah. So, anyway, he's tired. They return back to this place. After he recovers, they have a thing where they talk with the tree.
That sounds so weird.
Oh yeah, they get another purple crystal.
Yeah.
This is where the sky dungeon happens, where an elemental based puzzle they do, which takes longer, and again, the wizard figures out 99.9% of it.
Yep.
And they get an axe after fighting this angel, which kicks the crap out of people.
And so basically, to get out of this crystal, there's this axe there. There was this angel in the crystal that was kicking the crap out of people, asking if they were worthy.
They use the
Eventually-
axe to heal the tree, because yeah, don't. You know, originally I was just using this as to be like, hey, this axe is like magically powerful and only will hurt the evil people.
Use the axe to heal the tree.
Yeah, I at the time when I first said that, I realized just how ironic that was.
So, that this axe was an angel. That's one thing that I think that, like for instance, going over this goes over is this is it ends up being the sword that Daria has, and this sword talks. Yeah, the swords, but this axe talks, and it is a being.
Mm-hmm. It is the sealed angel of judgment and mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And the original stats for
mercy.
Yeah, the original setup for this was we had a barbarian. That barbarian liked to kill things. I gave him an axe that couldn't kill anything that wasn't evil.
But if it hit something evil, they exploded.
Yeah, if they hit something evil, they exploded, dealing damage to nearby evil things. If it killed anything that was not evil, it would just resurrect them.
Yeah. So, they get this axe. They continue on to. I forget what they did.
They returned to the village. This is where you then decided to question the tiefling. She gave you the information about the Goblin Info Network and brought you to see them.
Oh, yes, this fight. I love this fight.
Yeah, so they basically contracted you to clear out one of their holy grounds.
We get to the end of it, and there's this giant caterpillar dragon weird thing.
So, first of all, I think I should specify what a behir is. A behir is a evil lightning lizard that, it breathes lightning. They were bred to kill dragons. They absolutely hate and loathe the crap out of dragons.
So, at this point, I believe Eris was an adult, wasn't she? Because we were
She
going
was
and
large.
zooming through. Yeah.
She had gone
was
to young.
large. Mm-hmm. So
Because she'd been a wormling
I'm-
before, now she was young. So, because she was
Mira's-
large.
So Mira's basically been flying on top of Eris through this dungeon, clearing out things. They get to this final boss thing. This thing, as he said, loves to eat dragons, which I didn't know. And I just figured out just now. So we get there. In order to protect the people as much as possible and like damage control, Mira, since she was so fast and people were just entering, gets right up in its face.
By herself, with no one to help her, and
with
gets destroyed!
And so she cast. Now the thing is, I didn't play my character like I was supposed to. At this point in time, we were having a lot of bumps with other characters, other player characters, and they weren't very happy. So I decided I was going to cast Multiple Meteors, but I wasn't going to do the full spell. I was only going to do half of it. And that was a dumb idea, because it could have...
Because she then gets lightning breath and fried.
Yep.
Like,
no,
almost
so basically,
instantly.
it goes and constricts Eris, tries to eat Eris, fails. It did a crit fail, so it throws up over both of us a bunch of lightning. We get completely fried, like to the point where we are basically almost dead. And so, and we're constricted. I don't remember how I got out, but I did.
You were very low on HP. You got help from other players as they made their way in.
Salvin like raced right up on the thing.
It breathed another. You went to be healed by Valerian. It breathed
yeah.
a lightning breath that straight up killed Valerian, and would have straight up killed you as well. Using up your res thing, you would have needed in a bit here.
So yeah,
but
we had
it
ended
didn't
up
straight
running
up
away.
kill you. Instead, it almost did because Valerian helped.
And,
The Dryad at the time. Let me finish. The Dryad at the time did have Revivify, which means the first campaign death was legitimately reversed, as she used Reviv on him. But
So-
he was the first one to die. So after this point, he starts getting contacted by the Death God. But we'll get to that.
So Salvin has seen 3 of his people go down. Mira, I believe, went down twice. Because when Valerian healed Mira, it was because Mira already was downed. She was downed, and Eris was the one who ran away with the help of everyone else. And so he healed Mira.
Which
Which
if he
brought her back to
hadn't, she
life.
would have been dead.
Yeah, it brought her back to awake, and
She got lightninged in
and
the
then
face immediately
lightninged in
again.
the face, and both her and Eris went down this time, I believe. And at this point, Salvin had seen Mira, and that Mira is like a good friend to him. Mira's actually really she's starting to like him, but he don't know what in the world that means. So, yeah, so Mira's actually a legitimate friend at this point, wouldn't you say?
They're acquaintances, direct acquaintances.
Okay.
Like you're not on negative terms anymore.
Because like he flipped out when he saw like this
It was Valerian's death that actually sent him over the edge, because his big thing is he doesn't like anybody dying.
Yeah.
And Valerian straight up died. He saw that
Yeah.
happen, and because this was before he was revived, he flipped his shit, breached the veil, and murked this motherfucker. But as we clarified before, in his weakened state, breaching the veil is bad. He's not strong enough to handle doing it.
And he ends up starting to die.
Mira
Whenever
flips
he
out.
Yeah.
Tries to give him the halo, doesn't know how. Daria
so
gets possessed
basically-
again by Lolth, who attempts to steal it, but upon it,
You're really
what? What'd you say?
nothing. Just keep going. You zoom through it so quickly. It's just like I was like, man, it's like all the drama of the scene's gone.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm recapping. Like, there's a bunch of played out drama. They're like, what do we do? She tries like I said, you try like 5 different things. Nothing works.
Yeah. And then she had seen this halo before whenever she tranced.
He had showed it to
Um,
you as well.
Yeah, and he had shown it to me, and she's like, you can have anything, you can have this. I don't need it. He needs it more than I do, because I think he explained it to her, didn't he? Or something like that.
You sort of knew what it did. You didn't know exactly what it did because you never explained it.
She knew it was helpful with like death. She's like, you like any, just take it, take it. She's like trying to plead with the gods, and Lilith possesses Daria. She's like, oh, so I can have this. And Mira's like, if it'll bring him back to life, yeah, as long as it helps him, take it. And you can explain this part because it's a bit tricky. It happens a lot
You
fast.
don't see it entirely as she grabs the halo and it appears to shatter. But Saladin does come too, and he's just sort of like, let's not do that again, okay?
Yeah, so he
and
is
Daria
able to
also
grab
passes
the
out.
halo. Yeah.
So they return to the goblins. The goblin leader dies, gives Eldon a stick that allows him to cast multiple concentration spells.
Right now what I'm gonna say is I'm gonna head to bed. I haven't slept in like 48 hours, so I'm gonna go to bed now.
This is your fault. Keep that to yourself.
I was just saying bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Sorry. Bye.
Anyway. Lol.
Yup.
So do you
And
guys have
don't you
any
forget.
questions of everything that's happened so far? Or are we on the same page at this point? Because there's still another section we got to go through.
No, I'm good. I just for me, it was interesting listening in. It was like, it's fun for me to hear about the arcs that have happened in the past, but it doesn't really pertain to my character all that much. So it's not as in depth for me
Oh yeah,
as
no.
it is for like you and Rogue.
Yeah.
I understand. And that's why when Rogue is explaining things, he tries to go into detail. I'm trying to just catch you up, if you can tell.
Uh huh.
She's just like, you ignored the drama of that scene. I'm like, yeah, because it's really not important for people that weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm trying to avoid yelling at her more than I usually do. Anyway, so pretty much after that point, they get another crystal, smack it. They end up going to the jungle. This is where they actually do find the monkey character dead, because she got poofed away at some point. The crystal that they smacked from the goblins, they get a bow that fires laser bolts, which was basically like the special upgraded weapon for the ranger to help him do more damage. This is where damage sort of started to scale up a bit. Anyway, they go to the jungle, they fight a Hydra. The Draken gets eaten by the Hydra, almost dies, gets saved by a spectral spider doing a body slam from the NPC. So this was like the first real time the NPC actually no, I realize now in the early part of the campaign, because of the interactions the players had with Daria being possessed by Lolth, there's a lot of parts where it's just like, oh, this wouldn't happen if she wasn't here, but she is here. You guys got kind of lucky by deciding to take this lead instead of another one. But you end up the Draken ends up living, but his wings have been basically wrecked, so he can't fly anymore, which makes him super depressed. I think the next dungeon they fought Mega Man. That's not a joke. I believe they were in a spaceship and fought Mega Man.
My question is why?
The original design for these, the original design name I had for these crystals was Cameo Crystals. Because originally I was playing with a bunch of weebs and gamer derps that loved the crap out of when I would reference stuff like that. So I was sort of doing it to placate them. Other planned dungeons that didn't get used were a laboratory where they fought the Power Rangers and the moon where they would fight the Sailor Scouts. Yeah, this was not a well-planned campaign in the beginning. It was just sort of derp nonsense. Um, anyway, they end up fighting the spectral thing again, the thing from earlier. They end up finding out that it's someone that's been possessed by the villain, who they find out to be the gnome from a story that is mentioned earlier, who also turns out is a vampire. The lady that they thought was a performer turned out to actually be a professional monster hunter. They end up saving her through jumping through some hoops involving hold person and some other shit. And they sort of find out a little bit about her as well during that she's a hybrid elf between a wood elf and a night elf. And elves hate hybridization, so she was abandoned as a child to a monastery. The monastery treated her like shit. She ran away when she was little. When she came back, some vampire attacked it. She defeated the vampire, but basically her home and everything she knew was destroyed. They freed her from this curse. She ends up helping them as they go finally, now that they've unlocked all the things, they go storm the Big Bad's castle. Oh, fuck. I forgot to... Okay, so before they fight her, in the jungle, Rogue got a crit fail on a wild magic roll. That crit fail was the entirety of existence forgot who she was.
You've told me about this.
Yes. I'm just recapping that for everybody. It's the recording purpose, because remember, it's not just you two who are listening.
Yeah. True.
And because of this, the party has like this standoff with her, because they don't know who she is. But Salvin sort of has connections to the energy that did this to her, so he's capable of recalling it. So they sort of have this. He eventually manages to talk them down, but because of this, her relationship with Eris and Daria is completely shattered. And when they return, a frightened Eris contacts the patron of metallic dragons, because at this time she's a brass dragon, Bahamut. And Bahamut, being an insane crazy person, tells her to run away from this person, that she is dangerous, because I don't know who she is, but I think she's dangerous. And he ends up teleporting Eris away. Mira throws a fit. Salvin tries to talk her down by saying, this is what happens when you try to run away from your problems. She has a wild magic roll that makes her wings bigger, so she ends up just deciding to stop hiding it at this point. And this is sort of where her character has that change to where she is more now. Her character hasn't changed a whole lot along the way since then, so I'm going to stop giving you major character updates on her. Other than she's had like some physical changes.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they end up going to this big underground castle after rescuing the other lady, whose name is... I need to pull it up. I think it's Azazel. Azazel, yes. Who's professional monster hunter. Again, she was based off a video game character. She was, like, the weapon she has is Vampire Killer from Castlevania. So, very, very generic. Again, this story was not written with a lot of, like, super thought in mind until later on, because it originally was designed for stupid people. And that becomes a lot more evident when we get out of the Lost Swan Valley, where Iswald is. Anyway, so they go to fight this gnome vampire guy. He has a super elaborate dungeon that they go through collecting keys and things like that. This is where Aiden is found after Eris is lost. And Aiden is very cryptic, as usual, saying that he knows Mira, but Mira doesn't know him, and he speaks Mira's language, even though she never remembers teaching it to him. They end up fighting this guy. He's a bit tough, but they manage to beat him. They exit the mountain through the top. from the top of the mountain. They say a meteor crashed down into Iswald. The town's destroyed. But some of the NPCs from there got a warning from a cleric character, and they escaped to the tree place. They go back to the tree place. From there, they sort of they reconvene. This is where Sylvari properly joins the party. They head south back to the goblins for information, because the goblins run an information network. Because they discovered at some point during their journey that none of them are from this plane. They're all from some different plane, that they somehow moved planes when coming to Iswald. And they all want to go home now. So, they need to figure out how to get home. They point them in the direction of a portal sorcerer that supposedly could help them. But in order to do that, they need to go south and charter a boat. They charter a boat with some pirates. They end up coming across a goat ship. They find a box. They make a big deal about the box when it's just a box that they can't open yet. The boat is attacked by an angry thunder god. The boat sinks. The party's separated and stranded on different islands. Long story short, they all have these emotional character scenes that bond them better. This is also where Kyle, Kane, and then the girl that died gets picked up. As the Marmor, the Draken character, is stranded by himself with the Ranger's telepathic dog. Yes, because the Ranger had a telepathic dog. So, and he has this ability that allows him to, climb, things, he has, suction cups on his feet, so he climbs straight up, this marble cliff while carrying this very distraught dog, who can talk to him, but he's just please put me down. Anyway, he ends up getting a boat from a character named Persephone, who was not a god. In fact, she was just an old character, it was... Anyway, this boat is the boat that you guys used. It still exists in the campaign. It's a boat that appears to be made of ivory, has no wood, so it's inflammable. The boat itself is indestructible. It comes pre-furnished, and it came with a crew of marble skeletons, which means their construct's not undead, which wouldn't bother the anti-undead cleric.
Right.
And because this character is a meme character, he names them all Frank, and he decides to number them.
Fair enough.
Anyway, he goes around picking up the other characters who've had their emotional scenes. The wizard is stranded on an island with the Dryad, where they have a joke scene where he summons a megalodon as a familiar to get him fish, and it brings him back a shark.
Nice.
And he's just okay. Not entirely what I had in mind. And so they just sort of have this goofy bonding scene. So then they continue heading south to the place they're trying to go. And it's really cold there. The only person that really likes that is the Silver Draken, because silver like cold, because it's their affinity. Mira does not like it at all. The others, the Dryad is literally freezing to death. So they have a bit of fiasco here. Long story short, they end up fighting a lesser ice goddess, kick the crap out of her because they've gotten a little bit powerful since Iswald. Because the crystals they've been opening, the equipment they have, they're a little bit stronger. Her stats are not very good because she's not in her home, and she's also not very strong. They end up going to this town that has the sorcerer. It's frozen over. They find out some sort of magical clash happened here. This is initially where Marmor leaves the party, and where Mercy is given to Daria. And this is where it's discovered that Mercy can change shape. Marmor leaves the party because events that happen, as Mira deteriorates in terms of form, into a more draconic state, she starts gaining draconic abilities from wild magic rolls, like a fearful aura, but she can't control it right now. So someone with a stronger one, like Salvin, actually has to suppress it, but it scares the crap out of the people that they traveled there with, because they sort of traveled there in a relief caravan, because no word had come from that city. When they, at this point, Mira also begins to get a slight control over her magic. She starts rolling with advantage. Anyway, they find a super big crystal that actually was going to be a portal to Greyhawk, but since no one really wanted to go there, Salvin instead pulls the guy out. The guy dies, unfortunately. But they find out about 2 portals that'll take them off the plane. One that will lead to another material plane that comes in 6 months. Or one that's opening very soon that leads to the Platinum King's domain, aka Bahamut's castle. Mira, being the main story driver at this point, knowing that Eris is with Bahamut, convinces the rest of the party to go attack Bahamut. Being that you guys have fought Bahamut, you know exactly how bad of an idea that ended up being.
Yeah.
So Mira dies. This is where Rogue's character is killed. Initially, Mira dies. They flee through an emergency exit via the boat, and end up stuck on a mountain in Eberron. Not the home any of them are from. Because Salvin is not in a good state, when they get down to the village and discover June is a character who sort of is not really gelling well with him, he sort of gets kind of aggressive with her, assaults a specific representative of the state, and then after the party leaves the city, with June now in tow, Rogue's new character, he sort of just runs off, and then June's patron is like, you need to go after him. So they spend basically the rest of this section of the campaign trying to chase him down. Hold on a second.
Still kind of sad we weren't able to do the campaign for today.
Yeah, the circumstances being what they are,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
alright.
Yeah, same. Only so much you can do.
I just feel bad for Cheapy.
Oh yeah, me too. That's fine.
Anyway, so, like I said, they spend the rest of the campaign running around, chasing after him. They pick up some of the NPCs you guys, that Scoot met, anyway. But they're basically representatives of each of the countries in, Corvair, which was the continent you were on, the major countries that participated in a previous war. I'm trying to think. There's not much I'm leaving out. June's story ends up going through as it goes through, but it's a personal character story. It's not really relevant to the plot. But they end up going through after. However, they end up going into basically what the villain's home is. And at this point, this is where I kind of had to kick everybody else from the rest of the campaign, because they were starting to be extremely antagonistic, not really wanting to move anything forward because they weren't really invested in the plot, because they didn't try to interact with any of the NPCs around them, really. because they were like, "Oh, it's just the rogue show," and I'm like, yeah, because you guys don't actually try to roleplay." And this is where the campaign started getting complex, and it was starting to fly over all their heads. Like when it was a simple campaign where they had a simple goal, they did fine. They were not ready for the higher end roleplay that was being forced on them. And in the end, what ended up happening is they went to a town. The basically the town, this country employed undead as things like servants and stuff like that. So they're just all walking around. The cleric that absolutely abhors undead ends up losing control and just starts killing undead, which is basically murder in this country. So they're all basically burned at the stake for their crimes with black necrotic fire, which will consume their souls. However, unbeknownst to the NPCs, because the players knew this at this point, Daria has an immunity to necrotic damage because of her godly ties.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this, she didn't burn to death and instead had a Storm Sorcerer episode fit. June and Daria escape. June is sort of traumatized by this because she's grown to like these people. They helped her escape from the guy who turned her into this robotic monstrosity that she is. Essentially, they end up finally in the city of Ondare, or the country of Ondare, in which Scoot knows.
Yes.
And yeah, pretty much from there, it plays out. They show up. Salvin shows up at the gate, so everybody flips their shit. They're supposed to be taken to a safe room, but they're actually taken into in this safe room. June is murdered. June's murder is what brings back Mira, and then pretty much from there, that's where Scoot and Badger's character kind of jump into the campaign from there, where so what it ended up happening is Salvin ends up getting there. The guy he was actually going after got blown up in the explosion that respawned Mira. He surrenders. Garen shows up to hand out his sentence because they had met Garen earlier. They end up striking up a deal. Salvin has to fight an evil spirit that's been sealed within Zanzibar, which is his lance that he uses. Which he has failed a gazillion times against. And this thing tries to take advantage of his weakness of his cares for Mira that he's developed over time. Because the party had believed that he had gone on a rampage because he was angry about Mira being dead. In fact, it had been the demon invasion that was going on. That was still sort of going... That's an ongoing thing in the world of Corvair, actually. That he was sort of putting a stop to by himself. That obviously didn't go well because the world at large thought he was a mass murderer. So he does die fighting this thing, but he does manage to defeat it, inspired to defend Mira, which this thing is trying to kill, which is where he activates his shield Invictus, which is basically a... if you've ever seen 300, it's one of those big round shields.
Yeah.
And it's a super legendary shield that, as long as you are facing and can see the target you are fighting, you cannot take damage from the front. And it's basically a shield that can literally block anything. And because he has this shield, he manages to fend this thing off, defeat it, and then he dies. But you all know how death is not really that big a deal for someone who's ascended, because dying just means you come back later.
Yeah.
It's a bitch.
It sucks, but it's not permanent. So eventually he does end up coming back to the story. They end up quelling this demon invasion. And that's when you guys join the story, and that's pretty much everything caught up. Gee, it's amazing how much faster you go when you skip over the tiny bits that aren't as important. This probably didn't need to be as long, but you know, Rogue, she likes her stories obsessively, and it's frightening that she does.
I mean, hey, it's about the same with your damage stats.
Yeah.
You did go on contingents about the damages, which I do understand. They're very different from what they are now, and what we have is very different from
I was
today.
trying to make you understand that because the important thing is to know how far along you are.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, because the thing is, she kept dawdling on scenes that were super important to her character, and I'm like, that's nice for you, but other people don't care as much, especially since they weren't there.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other day, I was trying to think of a game we all had that we all could play, that we all would enjoy playing, and I had so much difficulty coming up with one. Like, I know you guys own Terraria, and I used to like Terraria. The thing that made me start hating, well, I didn't say I hate it, I just don't like it anymore. The thing that made me stop liking Terraria is Starbound. Starbound is like a million times better.
I never could get into Starbound though.
Yeah, same. I think we tried it as a group one time I think when we found out more about it. When we
It
tried
has
I think-
changed so much since it first came out. I will agree with you. Like, when it first released into, like, open beta and you could pre-purchase it, and play it in open beta, it was so much basically Terraria in space with less content. It has changed so much since then. Like, there's a main plot, and there's also a mod called Fracking Universe that adds like 3 more main plots to the game, makes the game insanely massive, allows you to customize and build your own spaceship, which saves between people's worlds. The drop-in, drop-out system is a lot better than Terraria, because in Terraria it's just like, well, the host has to have the world, and if that person's not playing, you're fucked. All your stuff is lost. Where in Starbound, you own your ship. Your ship has all your stuff on it, and it transfers between other players' worlds. It's fantastic. It's super duper good. And the best part about it, if you guys all have the same mods installed, you don't have to host any special server or anything to play together. You can just join via Steam, and it runs completely smoothly. There's also a party system, and you can join and drop in, drop out. There's plenty of boss fights now. Actually, I think there's more actually good boss fights in it than there are in Terraria, because Terraria has a lot of rehash bosses.
Yeah, because you can just recreate the bosses anytime you want. Scott and I have been doing that a bunch actually.
Yeah.
But like the thing I like about Starbound that makes it 100% better than Terraria, the world is so much bigger. Like, it's not even funny how much bigger the world is. Like, this, you actually feel like you're dropped down in an absolute universe. You also have the ability to create your own colonies, terraform planets. It's amazing. Like, it's like what they promised No Man's Sky was gonna be, except actually what No Man's Sky was supposed to be. Combined with it has a much better combat system with proper dual wielding. The armors actually mean things, like your different armor sets mean a whole lot. And if you download Fracking Universes, there's like different sets of armor you need to wear to go to certain places. There's alchemy, farming. Holy crap, there is so much stuff in Starbound, it's not even funny. I absolutely love it.
Give me a second.
I absolutely love the crap out of Starbound, and it's why I can never play Terraria again, because Terraria is like so much worse in comparison now to Starbound, especially with its mod compatibility, because you have to manually download and install mods there, where in Starbound all you have to do is click subscribe on a bunch of buttons, because it has full Steam compatibility, which is fantastic. But I don't know, I think the other thing with Starbound is, you know, there's races and stuff in Starbound, so there's variety. I like Starbound a lot. It definitely is a better game than Terraria, but it's also because it's been getting more updates. Like, it got updated more than Terraria. It's a newer game than Terraria, and its mod compatibility is fantastic. It also has a story. You know, the thing that Terraria doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I find it just way more fun to build in it as well, because the building is absolutely fantastic. Terraria's building is eh. It also has proper commands you can put into the game. Like, you don't need to run a like TVAC or whatever server. A T-Shock, that's what it was. If you want to actually do commands. So that's nice.
Yeah. I'll be back. I gotta go help bring in groceries.
Yeah, I need to go do something, so I'll be back as well.
We should find a game and all play together. If you guys still have Starbound, we should totally play